Part 7, last part. We were talking about Frank Lloyd Wright. Frank Lloyd Wright came into prominence building singular homes for wealthy people around Midwest and East, and then he went into public architecture. And you should look up architecture in Rome, and the Romans invented the arch. And you're gonna look at this through some of the other examples you'll see. But if you look at these arches here, they're a little bit filled in with some other uprights and so on. But the architecture here, um, they got some of this information from the, says the Souks in the Middle East, but the Romans really perfect the arch, and some of this is eroded and it's been abandoned for a long period of time that was dug up. But this was kind of like a shopping mall, and there were markets, vendors with different, canvas tops like an easy up here and there, but there was also a larger permanent structure where people gathered and would walk down, and shop. So this particular building, which has gone through a few changes, but the Lewis Sullivan Carson Prairie Scott, it says Peary. Oh, that's weird. I don't know if that's correct. Scott and Company. I always thought that was Prairie. But anyway, this is the first high rise ever built, 1904. So over 100 years ago, first high rise. Partly to do with the elevator that, and you'll see this here. One is the elevator, the other is steel frame construction. Steel frame construction is steel is one thing that was invented not right at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, but steel was in production in the 1800s, and it got to the point where they understood how they could cast these big I beams and these big structures to have uprights that were smaller but stronger than anything that came before. If you think about the Eiffel Tower, that's an exposed steel structure, or an iron structure, and then steel is something that came around later, and then you could put glass, big, large plate windows. Plate windows, these were probably not of the actual era, these have been replaced, but plate windows were something that came around in the 40s and 50s as well. But you were able to go up more floors because of the elevator. Buckminster Fuller, this was a great idea that never took off, but then is it a great idea? He, he came up with the geodesic dome, and if you think about how much material is here to enclose this space, there's not a lot of material. It's just a bunch of rods at these triangular, repeating shapes to hold this form, which is a dome. Very strong, very little bit, very minimal material, and it created a structure. People were living in some of these houses, and I'm sure you've seen some. I've seen them out in Joshua Tree, different areas of the desert where somebody's living in a smaller one of these. But this was a late 20th century public structure, never did take off, but he thought the technology could provide this affordable shelter, but people preferred straight walls and a roof. So that's what happened there. Um, then backtracking a little bit, our precursor is the 1904 Lewis Sullivan building. Then our next permutation, and this is the height of international style, our Seagram building. Seagram was sold out, and I don't know what the building's called now, but this building was absolutely the perfect version of international style. No ornamentation, very geometric, big windows, um, several floors, and clean lines, and you could just have a minimal amount of material holding this building together. So if you think you could go back to the pyramids with the Egyptians and all that heavy stone, and come 2,000 years later, you've got, or 3 or 4,000 years later,
you've got this very minimal amount of material here holding up this building. Less is more. That's his tagline. This building is still standing. It's very active. It did very well. Now, the steel frame building is still happening, but people got sick of the international style. It was just squares, rectangles. Just how boring is that? So 30 years later, we're starting to fall away from that. And IMP and some other people, other architects, started to embellish and decorate again. And we have a very old building here in the foreground, don't get confused by that. But IMP decided to make it asymmetrical, and there's triangles, and these reflective surfaces will show the clouds, and there's some different things happening here, and there's a different sort of segment over here that's built off of it. But he was trying to move away from that strict box structure. Charles Moore is another one where he really reacted heavily against the international style, brought back some classical elements. Here's our arch, here's our posts, our lintels. I believe that one is Corinthian, and these are Ionic, or sorry, those are Doric right there. So, he wanted, everyone was a little bored, and you can see this building behind of the international style right up against it. A little bored with that, decides to go back into the idea of an Italian plaza, or Piazza d'Italia, okay? Postmodern. Deconstructivist architecture, Zaha Hadid. Unfortunately, she's passed away recently, but she was one of the preeminent female architects of the later 20th, early 21st century. Did a lot of really interesting buildings, but again, off center angles. There are angles here, and it's geometric, but it's not symmetrical, and it has this sense of movement of lines. So there's some diagonals here. This is at a diagonal. So interesting. She does a lot of art museums. This is the Broad Art Museum. She's done a few very interesting deconstructivist, rejecting conventions, and she's trying to make something that looks more like a sculpture. Okay.